right, well, we're going to be jumping around just a little bit. I feel like I say this every time I preach, but we're going to jump around a little bit in the scriptures this morning. And so if you'd like to follow along, we'll start in Luke chapter 10. So you can turn there, but we will be moving around, and we'll have all of the scriptures as usual on the screens. And as you're flipping there, I want to be the 10th or 20th or 30th person to say Happy New Year. Congratulations. You did it. You made it through 2024, and that is no small feat, okay? I'm proud of you. We still have X amount of years ahead of us, so we got to prepare for 2025. And I kind of feel like this part of the year, the first few weeks in January, can be, you're kind of like in limbo a little bit, right? Because we're still thinking about 2024. We're still thinking about the year that we survived, sort of. But now we're also kind of focusing on this next year. I think there are probably many in the room who participate in the tradition of creating a New Year's resolution. Raise your hand if you're a New Year's resolution kind of person. Raise your hand if you say, nope, I will not hold myself to any standard so that I may not fail. I'm kind of that way. I don't like saying that I didn't do my New Year's resolution, so I just don't make one. But as your pastor, I want to try to make a New Year's resolution with you today, the church. I want us to kind of think forward to this next year and try to zone in on kind of an area that we could improve when it comes to our faith. Because here's something I'm realizing just in retrospect, looking at 2024 and really every year before that. We are living in an incredibly distracting and busy world, okay? And it's turbulent, right? It's going a little bit crazy all the time. And something I know from personal experience, 2025 is not going to be any different. It won't get less distracting. It won't get less busy. It won't get less turbulent. And so what I want to do with you this morning is look for an area that we can improve when it comes to this problem of busyness and distraction. Because I'm afraid that this issue of busyness and distraction has hit the church pretty hard in the past 10-ish years, right? We haven't been safe from this problem. And so what I want to do is kind of explore how we might be able to make more room for Jesus in the coming year, okay? Amidst all this distraction, amidst all the busyness, I want to explore how we can make more room for Jesus this year. So that's our goal. We're going to look at the scriptures. We're going to try to understand and identify a few key areas in which we as believers are called to make room for Jesus in our busy, busy lives. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. Be prepared. This is the first point already. You can write something down immediately, which is great. Here's the first point. Make room in your time. Make room in your time. Now, there's a new sign that was built on Cheyenne about a month ago, and this is like my commute road. I take Cheyenne to get to, well, everywhere really, if I'm not going up to the 215. And there's this new sign that they added, and I noticed it pretty quick. It's not just a regular speeding sign. It's one of those special ones that has radar or something magical inside of it, and it can tell how fast you're going. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen these signs maybe? And it shows a number, and that number is your speed, right? We love those signs, don't we? I'm to be honest, I don't love those signs. It can be a little frustrating at times because what happens when you go 1 or 2 miles over the speed limit? Just a little bit, just 46, 47. What happens? It starts flashing at you, right? And then what does it do? It judgmentally displays the words, slow down. It's like it's shouting at you, right? I mean, this is a sign that does make sense for going eastbound on Cheyenne because people are flying down that road, but at the same time, I get a little frustrated. And I have to be understanding because sometimes it is the case that you don't really realize how fast you're going. And you look down at the speedometer and you're like, whoa, I'm going way over the speed limit. You look around, you look in the rear view, you look in the side mirrors, make sure nobody saw how fast you were going, right? It can be easy to just sort of forget until something starts flashing at you. Something outside of the car tells you basically you're going too fast. And it might be a sign, it might be red and blue lights in your rear view, right? But regardless, sometimes you just don't know until you receive that kind of feedback. And I think the same thing can be true in our lives. I think it can be the case that we don't fully realize or understand how busy and distracted we're getting until our bodies start to flash at us and our minds start to flash at us. And maybe it's, for your body, it might be fatigue, it might be It might be headaches. It might be that you have trouble sleeping. It might be a million things. Mentally, it could be a billion things, right? It's going to be anxiety. It's going to be these feelings of irritability. I get really irritable when I'm stressed, right? I'm unpleasant to be around just a little bit when I'm really stressed, when I'm really busy. And this is our body flashing at us, telling us that we need to slow down. But here's the problem, and you might be able to relate to this. Because when I get those signals that my body's telling me to slow down, I think this year, early in the year, like the first few months, I got sick like 6 times. And what is my thought usually when I receive these signals telling me to slow down, when my body's telling me you're going too fast, you're doing too much? What do I say? I don't say I should slow down. I say instead, I just need more time. I just need more time. I'm so busy. If I had a few extra hours, I'd feel so much better. I'm going to be honest, if I had 5 extra hours each day, well, first of all, I'd probably use that for sleep most days. I'm just going to be honest with you. But it'd be so helpful, right? I think anybody in the room would take a few extra hours in the day. But I'm going to tell you something you already know, and that is that you can't. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news if you didn't know that. You can't add any hours to your day. We all in this room get the same 24. So the thing that makes or breaks us when it comes to our time is how we spend it. How we spend our time. I want to take a look at this scene that you may have already turned to in Luke chapter 10, and I'll read it for us. And you'll see where I'm going with this. Here's what it says in verse 38. While they were traveling, he, Jesus, entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who also sat at the Lord's feet and was listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. And she came up and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? So tell her to give me a hand." The Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken from her." Who'd have thought that in a time well before the internet that it was possible to find yourself distracted with many tasks? But did you catch what Jesus' response was? There in verse 42. He said, Mary has made the right what? Choice. We choose how to spend our time. And I believe personally, you can disagree with me, but I believe that the way that we spend our time is the biggest indicator of what our priorities are. The way that we spend our time is a huge indicator of what our priorities are. If my health is a priority to me, then you're going to see me in the gym. You're going to see me in the kitchen cooking good meals. If becoming a better golfer or marksman is a priority to you, then you're going to spend time at the range. See what I did there? Because it's golf and shooting there. It's both the range. You were supposed to laugh there, but that's okay. We'll forgive you. If spending time with my family is something that I'm doing constantly, then you know that they're a priority to me. And if my relationship with Jesus is a priority to me, then like Mary, I'm going to be spending time at his feet. Spending time with Jesus. I don't want to be harsh. I am the youth pastor, so I like to be the fun uncle of pastors. Okay? I like to let Pastor Nathan be the one who brings the hammer home, right? But I got to be honest when I have a conviction, and my conviction is this. If this time right here at the 10:30 service is the only time in your week, from week to week, that you spend with Jesus, then he's not a priority. I don't see how it can be. That's 0.6% of our time in a week, 1 hour. And I get it because we have a billion different things that are bugging us, right? It's unfortunate. I didn't realize this until I became an adult, but you don't have more free time than when you're a kid, right? You have more responsibilities. It feels like you have little threads attached to every limb of your body, and they're trying to pull you apart because you have so many things that you need to worry about. Sometimes I feel like if I duplicated myself, I still wouldn't be able to get all my work done. It's difficult. I understand there are so many things in this life that are pulling us in different directions. And we can focus in on and we can explore what would happen if we don't make time for Jesus. We could explore that. But I think it's more helpful and more useful to explore what might happen if we do. If we do make room for Jesus in our time, despite the time crunch that we feel that we're in. So what happens? What happens when we make room for Jesus in our time? I think the prophet Isaiah has a great answer to this. In chapter 40, verse 31, he says this. You might know this passage. I love it. There's a great song that goes with it. I forget what the name is, though. But here's what he says. He says, "But those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint." When we make room for Jesus in our time, it's like we get back more in strength than what we put in. That's why David says, "My cup runneth over." There's only one source where you can have your cup that's running over. It's an infinite source, right? And so if you're willing, really quick, to try a little experiment with me, I'll do it this week too, for maybe one day. But I want you to do it for 3 days. I want you to explore the possibility of time blocking, okay? And if you don't know what that means tonight you make a date with your calendar, you sit down, and you start to plot. You start to block out time, showing what you're going to do when you're going to do it, okay? That means sleep, you block that out. Those 6 hours, whatever it is for you, you block that out. Work, you're going to block that out. You're going to block out time for your family, time for cooking, eating, driving, going to the store, whatever. But most important, you're going to block out time to spend with Jesus, okay? And I've done this, and when I've done it, there's 2 things I want to tell you. Number 1, when I do it, I feel so much less stress. If I know exactly what I'm going to be doing in the day, I feel a little bit more relaxed because I feel like it's ahead of me. I feel like I'm following the plan. I'm not deviating. There's nothing that's going to happen that's unexpected. Now, of course, life does get in the way, and you will have unexpected things come in. Doesn't matter. When you're time blocking, you just write what actually happened during the day, and then you'll be able to look at it later on. So that's the first thing that helps when I do this process. But the second thing, and the more important thing, is this. When I make an appointment, when I try to block out time to spend with Jesus, what happens? I do it. I actually do it. It's like setting up a meeting time with him. A specific time, a specific place that you're going to spend with Jesus. And that is a better way, I promise, that is a better way than leaving it up to your emotions. My emotions are so fickle. If I ran every morning that I felt like running, how many mornings would I run? None. If I waited to wake up and felt, oh, do I feel like running today? I'm never going to feel that in the morning. So I need to block out that time. I need to say, hey, I'm running tomorrow. Or you need to say, hey, I'm going to spend time with Jesus tonight. Because if you wait until that moment when it's like, should I don't know if I feel like it or not, it's just not going to happen, right? And so that's kind of a little bit of encouragement and sort of a little life hack that I want to give to you. Now here's the second area that the Bible, I believe, calls us to make room in, and it's this. Make room in your heart. Make room in your heart. Those whose work necessitates the existence of meetings will know the following. Just because a meeting took place does not mean that anything productive got done. We can set up a meeting time with Jesus. That's a great thing to do. But more important than that is to be actively fanning the flames of heart transformation that he's looking to do in you. You got to be present in that time. In 2 Corinthians, Paul puts it this way. He says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away, and see, the new has come. Imagine for a moment that you're updating an old phone or an old tablet or an old computer. You're updating it to the latest software, right? I don't know if you've ever done that before. Sometimes your phone will just tell you, hey, you have to update. I'm not going to give you a choice. It's going to happen at 3 a.m. tonight. You have to do it, right? And I've done this for many of my devices, over time, and I've done it for many other people, helping them, get their computers running, right? And I like doing that because I have a gift in that area. But what happens when the gap is really big, right? When you take a really old phone, a really old tablet, a really old computer, then you put the latest software on it, what happens when you do that? It becomes slower than dirt. Or it doesn't work at all, right? or it won't even accept the update. And the point I'm trying to make is this: adding Jesus to a heart that is filled with and continues to run on pride, greed, and selfishness is like trying to force new software into an outdated system. It will not work. Transformation doesn't happen until we make room for God in our hearts and allow him to transform our heart, to make it a new thing, a more beautiful thing. And I want to clarify a couple of things. First off, it's not us doing the transforming. That's really important. You can see it there. It's not us that does the transformation. Who is it? It's God, right? And because it's God doing the transforming of our heart, changing us into this new person once we begin to follow him, we need to understand that it's not our responsibility to fix ourselves before we go to Jesus. We don't have to fix ourselves before we go to God, before we pray, before we go into church. I think this is something that people are missing. I believe there are people outside this building right now who are interested in the idea of going to church, interested in the idea of reading their Bible, but they feel that they have to fix themselves before they do. They're like, nah, I'm not going to set foot in a church. I'll surely, burst into flames. Right? That's totally backward. It doesn't start with you fixing yourself. It starts with going to Jesus, coming to church, trying it out. And that's why I say that it's so important that we do personal invitations, because when you invite somebody to church, I don't remember the statistic perfectly. Pastor Rodney knows it by heart, I'm sure. It's like 80%, something like 80% of people would say that they would attend a church service if they were only asked. They just have to be asked by somebody they know. And when we ask people, we invite them into church, we also have the opportunity to remove all of those misconceptions they have about what it means to be a church attender. It does not mean being perfect. I think we can be honest about that, right? In this room, we can annoy each other. We can frustrate each other. We are not perfect people. And so I don't want anybody who's even thinking about it to believe that that's the case, that they need to fix themselves before coming to church. That's a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it's worth saying. In Psalm 51, David asks this. He says, God, create a clean heart for me and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Our Bibles describe a relationship with God wherein we rely on him to change us, to change our hearts, turn it from this gunked up, broken thing into something beautiful, something more like Jesus. In Jesus' letter to the church in Laodicea, there's this powerful invitation he gives to the Christians there. He says this, see, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him. I will come in to him and eat with him, and he with me. There is a close personal fellowship with Jesus waiting for any and all who are willing to make room for him in their heart. That's all it takes. And finally, point 3, the Bible calls us to make room in our lifestyle. Make room in your lifestyle. Back when I was in high school, I distinctly remember we had a Bible teacher who I loved. I thought he was a funny person. I feel like I get some of my sense of humor from him. Because one day, one class, we came in, we were sitting down, and he just comes up to us to the front of the class, and he says, men's brains are like waffles. That's what he says. He says, men's brains are like waffles. And he explains that men's brains, the way that they think is like a bunch of boxes set up on a wall, right? When you're focusing on one thing, you're in one box. And then when you focus on a different thing entirely, you're in that box now. You're not thinking about this box. You're separating things. And essentially what he was saying is that men's brains are a little compartmentalized. And I think a lot of people's brains are compartmentalized, men and women, right? Where we sort of separate things a little bit. It's a little cleaner that way. We separate work, we separate, our personal life, our love life. We separate those things into neat little boxes so that we can handle them as easy as we need to, right? And personally, I do think that way sometimes. When I'm at work, I'm in work mode. When I'm with my friends, I'm in friend mode. When I'm watching a movie or reading a book, I disappear completely and I become the main character, right? I just totally forget about everything else. I'm in that box, right? But I'm going to be honest with you, there is a danger to thinking that way. There's a danger to having a compartmentalized way of thinking. See the danger here. Because for somebody who's really skilled at compartmentalization, There is no incongruity. There's no problem between singing You're a Good, Good Father on Sunday and domestic abuse on Monday. If you can separate things really well, and we have brains sometimes that can separate things really well, then there is no difference between how you are on Sunday and how you are on Monday. There's an amazing song called Monday Morning Faith, right? And that's the premise of the song, that we don't want to have this faith that changes from Sunday to Monday. We want to be the same person. So there's a litmus test sort of question that you can ask, and maybe you'll know whether you're making this mistake like I have in my life before. And the question is this: is Christian a mode that is turned on when you're at church and when you're doing your quiet time, when you're praying before meals, and then it's turned off at all other times? When you're with your friends and all of that, they don't even know you're a Christian. People don't recognize it on you because it's off. Christian mode is turned off. The Bible is not painting a picture of a part-time job when it comes to our faith. Paul wrote this: so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do everything for the glory of God. This communicates the kind of living where we don't just go and visit God on certain days of the week, on Sundays primarily. We don't go and visit him. God's not in this room. He's in our whole life. He's in every moment. In James 1:16-17, it says this: every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Our Bible is not trying to paint a picture of asceticism. You know what I mean? Where you set aside all of those worldly pleasures. You don't take part in any of them. You just kind of live, you just pray, and that's all you do, right? That's not the picture the Bible is painting. Some of the moments that I feel closest to God are moments where I'm just eating good food with friends. I'm just eating delicious sushi with my family. And I feel so close to God in those moments. Playing board games, watching a movie, losing horribly at cornhole. Nothing about those things is separate or other or different from what it means to be a Christian. Those aren't separate things. This is a whole life that we're trying to talk about. So how is it that you can be in those moments and still have this faith that really encompasses all of your life? Well, it takes, number one, it takes a heart of gratitude. And it takes an understanding that all good things in this life come from God. That delicious food is from God. The fellowship and the laughter that you get to have with your friends and family, that is from God. It is a good thing. And it takes a willingness, and this is something that's difficult. It's taken me a long time to really open this up. It takes a willingness to allow God to bleed into every moment of your life. Bleed into the rest of your life. It's not just contained to Sundays. It's Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. It's all of those. It's every day. And maybe you're here this morning and you're starting to feel really just busy. You're starting to feel distracted. You're starting to feel like, I don't know, like you've been going 65 and a 25 for the past 100 miles. I've definitely been there. If you're not there now, I know that Christmas just passed, and so we kind of feel a little bit of a breather before we start doing things again. But hey, it's going to get busy. It's going to get crazy. So you're going to be in that position later on. And I want to leave you with a couple of things. Number one, I want to leave you with a warning that comes from personal experience. And number two, I want to leave you with a little bit of encouragement. And the warning comes in the form of a quote that you'll see up on the screen from a great Christian author, John Ortberg, who says this. Lean in just a bit because this is super, super good. It's better than anything I've said so far in my sermon. Here's what John Ortberg says. For many of us, the great danger is not that we will renounce our faith. It is that we will become so distracted and rushed and preoccupied that we will settle for a mediocre version of it. If there's one area in our lives where mediocrity will not cut it, it's in our relationship with Jesus. Because the reality is, if we refuse to make room for him in our time, in our hearts, and in our lives, then he will make no room for us in his house. And the encouragement comes from Jesus, though, and it's so powerful. This is Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Here's what he says. Come to me. You may know this passage because I've listened to it and read it a billion times. I love this passage. He says, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find what? Rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. See, the truth is, here's the reality. It can be difficult when you're thinking about, I got to make room for, I got to change everything up. The reality is this. You cannot make room for Jesus in your lives if you're not willing to go to him with it. It's a partnership kind of thing. We're going to be as busy as possible. I said before, if we had 5 extra hours in the day, that'd be amazing. But I promise you this, you would fill those 5 hours in a second. Yep. You'd fill them in a moment, right? Doesn't matter how much time we have. What matters is we change the way that we spend our time. And the more we go to God, the more we ask him to help us with that change, the easier it's going to be, and it's going to happen.